So, Speak Up Sports Podcast, the Week 1 NFL episode of the 2025 season of the Speak Up Sports Podcast. How you guys doing today? What's going on, fellas?
We are here.
Really made it, man.
Yes, we are finally here, and funny enough, it always seems to happen, right after we shoot. We got major news last Thursday, something that we hinted at. It kind of makes us look silly because, we sat here and talked so much about how all these, mainstream media is not really talking about Micah Parsons being traded and stuff like that. The very next morning, not even 12 hours later, everybody's talking about on the mainstream how Micah Parsons could possibly be traded. And then by the afternoon, Micah Parsons was officially traded to the Green Bay Packers last Thursday. Obviously a bombshell, one that we talked about a little bit last week, but we all pretty much was like, that shit not happening. What'd you guys think? Micah Parsons is finally a Green Bay Packer. Obviously, Chris, you're probably excited as an Eagles fan, but what did you guys think when you heard the news?
I mean, I feel like everybody's reaction is like, I can't believe they fucking did it. Like, your first reaction is almost like, I can't believe you did it. Why would you do it? And I'm still, to this day, still thinking like, why would you? I guess my whole thing is, why would you trade it to Green Bay Packers? I mean, this team has, outside of the people obviously in your division, this team has been a thorn in your side. And you basically catapulted them to being, one of the favorites now as far as making it out of NFC to be in to go to the Super Bowl. And it's just like, I understand the return, but you have very much more options if you decided you wanted to trade him. As in, why did you wait to the week before your first game of the season to trade Micah Parsons? I mean, you could have easily traded him. I mean, obviously the scenarios are, you could have easily traded him before the draft, got better return on the product that you decide to sell. But I mean, shout out to Green Bay for jumping out there and go ahead and get that ball rolling and go ahead and get a generational player. You can, if you as you would call it, because I mean that's a difference maker on that side of the ball, especially with the turnover they had as far as obviously losing Jair. And then obviously they got Kenny Clark went in with the deal, but that's a good team there. That is a scary team there. So yes, I am happy that he's not in our division, but obviously we still gotta see them boys. So
Yeah, I feel you. My initial reaction was kind of like you said, Chris, like everybody else. It's like, what the fuck? Like, why would they do that? But after sleeping on it, and it's been almost a week later at this point, my reaction is still, what the fuck? Why would they do that? Because Micah Parsons is a generational athlete. You do not trade somebody like that. I didn't, like you said, Shot, I didn't think it would happen. None of us really thought it was happening. I thought it was just all talk. But then you start to see time kind of ticking away, and it's like, okay, they're not even making any kind of progress. They're not even talking. Apparently, they weren't even talking. So it's like, okay, maybe it happens, but I still thought it was all just like, nah, they'll figure it out. So it was definitely surprising, still surprising. Jerry's press conference that night, entertaining. I will say that. So he has that going for him. But just seeing him trying to spin it all and create these kind of narratives, both against Micah and for his team, now with like stopping the run and you could possibly get 5 players for 5 elite players for whatever he was saying. Bullshit. Like, I see what you're trying to do, Jerry, but nah, I'm not going for it, man. You don't do that. And I get, like, at the same time, I hear what he's saying about the run defense, but like, you could have made your run defense better and still paid Micah Parsons. You don't need, and the way the league is now, it's not easy to find run defenders. I get it. It's not easy to find nose tackles. I get that. But at the same time, you still a passing league overall. You still need elite pass rushers on the edge. So I don't know if that was the best idea. And then you look at those first round picks that he got. They're going to be probably later in the draft, probably 25 and higher in the next couple of drafts. As you said, Chris, if he would have traded Micah before this draft, he could have got, I'm pretty sure a team in the top 20 would have jumped on that. And you could have got immediate kind of help, but it's definitely a choice. But Jerry's going to be Jerry. Shout out to Micah. I think that's a good, him and Jordan Love are real close. Of course, we've seen the videos. We've seen, them take trip. They went to, where they go? Dubai, Abu Dhabi, whatever they went with Kyle Pitts and Justin Fields and Bijan earlier this offseason. So they're, close. I know he's kind of like, it is Wisconsin, but I know he's happy to be there. That's a good paycheck as well, too.
Yeah, I think that the Cowboys, brass probably would have benefited a little bit more by taking the night, letting everybody have their reactions and stuff like that, and then coming out the next day and doing a press conference. But part of it is Jerry, probably trying to get out in front and be the face and the star of the show. I think reading some of the things that have come out, I know ESPN dropped an article with Jeremy Fowler specifically kind of detailing everything. And it, one of the things they mentioned was like Dallas preferred to, they did they even though they may not have had the conversations as like, seriously before the draft, they preferred to look after the draft because teams might be more willing to give up, keep or might be more willing to move off of players post draft now that they know who they've got coming in, who they could possibly develop and stuff like that. So there there is some merit to that. And I know a lot of people have been like Kenny Clark, he's 30, he's washed, or whatever the case may be. That remains to be seen, but I don't necessarily think that it was a bad return. I would not have traded Micah Parsons, so I do want to make that clear. But similar to how I felt about Luka, and it is two tough hits in Dallas, with Luka being traded as well
Real
as
tough.
Micah Parsons in less than a year. But similar to how I feel about Luka, like if you did feel like Luka was a problem or like a culture problem, which a lot of people, and even post the trade now, it seems like the Cowboys players have kind of like, through their words, seemingly acknowledged, like, and even Micah to an extent has seemingly acknowledged, like, hey, I could have possibly been a distraction. I could have possibly been there. There definitely were people that were rubbed wrong by his podcast. We've seen Malik Hooker come out and talk about it before in the past. Obviously, he had a little spat with DeMarcus Lawrence after DeMarcus Lawrence went to the Seattle Seahawks and said some things about the Cowboys and stuff like that. So there is a possibility. There was rumors based on that article that I mentioned with Jeremy Fowler that there were issues with how Micah handled, his training camp this year, and like some, they were saying like he was kind of, he was active in like the meeting rooms, but outside of that, there were some things that weren't necessarily a bad look that supposedly even got to like Dak Prescott feeling a type of way. Who knows? We'll kind of see. The time will tell on that, and there's obviously more stuff going to come out, but. Like I mentioned, similar to the Luka stuff, is like when you start to play it out and you start to think like based on some of the things that they said that they were looking for, I think that it eliminates a lot of teams, more so than what people like. A lot of people were like, it's easy to say after the fact, oh, we would have offered XYZ, this, that, and the third. Like, sure, you would have. Sure, you would have offered 3 first-round picks and a player. Yeah, sure. It sounds good in theory, but then when you're actually doing it, and then on top of that, paying, top of the market for a pass rusher, breaking the bank for having the highest paid money for a non-quarterback, it looks a little different. And I do think like Bomani Jones had a good. Which, I'm actually kind of starting to like Bomani a little bit more and more as I get older. Not to say that I ever disliked him, but there are some things that I'm kind of like, he's a little off on that one. But this one, he kind of was like, if Jerry Jones would have signed him to the contract that he ended up signing, a lot of us probably would have been, a lot of people, not us maybe specifically, but a lot of people probably would have been like, he got fleeced. So how do we not look at the Packers and kind of say the same thing? I don't know. I'm not saying that they got fleeced because I don't think that they got fleeced if you can get a pass rusher of that caliber, especially to go along with some of the players that they also have on that defense. I think it's a no-brainer. But, it's tough. It's just tough, like the optics of it, how it all played out. It probably would have been a little different if he just would have gotten traded and there wasn't like this whole public back and, swinging dick contest basically between Jerry and Pause and Micah. But, all in all, I don't think that the Cowboys necessarily got that bad of a return. And if Micah Parsons was, this problem in the locker room, I know that their record has been good prior to last year. That's also a positive for them as well. But it is tough trading him in conference to the Packers. Just, they just had a documentary drop with the Cowboys where Jerry Jones basically said that Packers loss that they had in the playoffs a couple of years ago was one of the most devastating losses that they've had in the history of his time with the Cowboys. So that also kind of makes it look a little weird. It's just a bad situation just in terms of how everything played out, I think, more so than the trade itself. So, time will kind of tell on that. And Micah, I do feel a lot better about my Defensive Player of the Year pick and Micah Parsons being that pick. But I don't feel as great about my playoff picks, which we did put a little bit of a caveat in that last week.
We did.
So, with that being said, I do want to revisit my playoff picks. In terms of the ultimate how everything ends and how everything plays out, teams that are in the Super Bowl, stuff like that, I'm not changing that. But I do want to say, before I had Seattle in my playoff picture, I am removing them. I had them as my 6th seed. I'm moving the Packers to the 5 seed, which were the Vikings originally for me. I'm going to have the Cowboys actually moving up from the 7th seed to the 6th seed and the Vikings dropping to the 7th seed. So Seattle, unfortunately, is being removed for me. But everything else, the way the playoffs shake out and everything else will remain the same. And then obviously
Cowboys
in
still
division,
in it, huh?
Cowboys I still got in it.
Okay.
I am not as down on the Cowboys.
Although your caveat definitely said that you was taking them the fuck out, but I'm gonna hold you. I'm gonna let
say
you.
that.
I'm gonna let you have it because you definitely said you taking them out.
He said they trading. I'm taking their asses out.
I'm taking their ass out.
So, I will say I did not expect them to get a player. If they were going to trade, I was expecting more like we're just getting a bunch of picks. I wasn't expecting, especially, Kenny Clark, given like his stature with the team, maybe they would have got like Van Ness or something like that. That was, we were kind of speculating before the player actually dropped that that's who it could have been.
Yeah.
But, obviously the Cowboys said that they didn't want a pass rusher. So,
yeah. All right. Well, I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna take, but for me, I'm gonna take the Cowboys. I had the Cowboys at 6th seed. So I'm just swapping. I had the Packers out the playoffs, so I moved them to the 6th seed. Cowboys are out. And I had the Seahawks still at 7th seed for me. So nothing changed, like you said, Shai. Nothing changed as far as the outlook of the whole playoffs. But definitely I gotta put the Packers in there. And I had them second in the division anyway. I just didn't have them in the playoffs. So.
And they were the team that I like initially when I was going through it, like just on my own time. I had the Packers as the 5 seed, and then I switched it out, put them back in, switched it out, and then that's how I ultimately landed on what I had, which was Vikings, Seahawks, Cowboys. But so I was always teetering on the Packers, and you guys know I've looked at the Packers the past couple of years. So
we know.
I'm back on I'm back with the squad now. but also I will say that it does, like, if you do really think about kind of the NFC and how things look. I know people are trying to put Jaden Daniels in that like category of this elite passer. Some people have had him top 6, top 7, top 8. Basically everybody has virtually had him top 10. Outside, and Matt Stafford as well has been a guy that people have had top 6, top 7. And then, I obviously picked Jared Goff to be my MVP personally. But a lot of the teams in the NFC are built around the run game. So It's not like Jerry doesn't have that much merit. Like, you got the Packers who got Josh Jacobs. Obviously, Jordan Love is a big part of it, but, Josh Jacobs is kind of an engine for them. The Lions, we don't even need to get into. We know how their run game is. The Eagles, we obviously know how their run game is. the 49, I mean not the 49ers, we know how their run game is. Seattle, they're built around the run. There's a lot of teams in the NFC that are built that way. So maybe Jerry's not as crazy as everybody. He probably doesn't do the best job of explaining. And then, like I said, everything else that happened, that transpired between him and the agent and Micah and all that stuff.
And
of course,
him
people
going
are
on
thinking,
Stephen A. and all that shit.
doing all that extra bullshit. That adds a little like, all right, this guy doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. But if you really start to think about it, and maybe it's just cope, maybe it's just trying to figure, try to talk through it. And when you do talk through it, you just kind of start coming up with scenarios. But I do think that there's a bit of merit in some of the things that he says. So, but it'll be fun. We still, the chapter of this is not over. Obviously, the Cowboys and Eagles play tomorrow and the opening night. There's going to be a lot of talk about it, even though the Eagles should kind of be the marquee and what's talked about. But that's going to be talked about a lot. And then obviously we have the Cowboys and Packers playing on Sunday Night Football in a few weeks as well. So it's not over even in the slightest. We're going to hear more and more stuff about it. I imagine that we'll probably talk about it a little bit more. But, it is crazy. It's crazy that it happened when it did, who it involved, especially considering some of the guys that have requested trades with Trey Hendrickson, Myles Garrett, that they didn't get moved. And now all of a sudden, the guy that everybody was like, he's definitely not getting moved, ends up being the one that does.
The youngest one of all of them, of everybody.
The youngest one of all of them as well. But, with that being said, that kicks us off to a great start to our week one. Obviously, like I mentioned, we have banner night tomorrow with the Eagles and Cowboys. We've got a lot of, divisional games. We got the Kansas City Chiefs and the Chargers. Obviously, on Friday, we got the Bucks and Falcons that are playing. We got the Bears and Vikings that are playing on Monday. A lot of big games, a lot of revenge games. Is there any in particular outside of your own team, before we kind of get into the picks and the hot seat watch, is there anybody in particular, any game in particular that you guys are looking forward to kind of seeing? Or not even just games, just teams in general that you're just like, I'm just excited to see how that week one, or interested to see how week one looks.
I got a couple.
I mean, I could say I'm interested to see the Steelers and the Jets game. It might not be the most talked about game, but you got two quarterbacks who played on the opposite team. Plus, everybody is wondering, what is Aaron Rodgers really going to be about? What is it going to actually look like on that side of the field? So I'm interested to see, has he returned some of his form? Obviously, I don't feel like he will be ever at his top echelon like he used to be, but just to see how serviceable he is in that Steelers offense, just to see how it looks out there. And obviously, Justin Fields, I mean, we all say it's probably his last chance. So see what he made of. So that's one of the games I'm interested in to see.
A couple outside of the ones we're picking. One, definitely the Jacksonville Carolina game. Of course, we talked about it pretty much all off season. Like, how are they going to use Travis? I'm interested to see. This is probably, I know he got the clear bill of health. So this could possibly be the healthiest he's ever been. He's going to be this season, in game one. So how are you going to use him? How much are you going to use him on both sides of the ball? And then Carolina, you ended the season well. Are you going to pick that right up? Jacksonville's defense has a lot to prove after what they put on the field last season as well. So, for both sides there. And then also San Francisco, Seattle. And I would get more into that with my hot seat. But definitely interested to see how both those teams kind of look just overall on both sides of the ball coming out.
Yeah, and I agree. Carolina and Jacksonville was one that I was kind of looking at as well. Obviously, because both of the quarterbacks, two former number one overall draft picks, both guys that, I don't know if Carolina or Bryce Young necessarily has the fans that Trevor does outside of maybe Rashad, but there's a lot riding on this game for both of them in terms of like both getting off to a hot start, both people kind of coming in with questions. Like, there are a lot of people that are really, really starting to question Trevor this year as opposed to years past. there are a lot of, as great as the Panthers into the season, I still feel like there are a lot of people that are like, nah, like that was just kind of, we see on some of the shows they've been saying, they were taken lightly, Bryce Young is still small, whatever the case may be. They really didn't do anything. Like there's a lot of questions that have been going around the Panthers. And then Jacksonville, obviously, as I mentioned, there's been a lot of questions about Trevor, really probably since his second or third year in the league. But on top of that, I mentioned his health and what the concussions look like for him moving forward as we kind of like track Tua and stuff like that. But also just for his career, because he did get paid, as we're talking about Micah Parsons, he was in that same draft class. He was a number one overall pick. If he doesn't have the season that people are expecting him to have, like, or just a good season, it's just maybe it's mediocre. Is that somebody that we look at next year where we're talking, a lot of the conversation next offseason is where's Trevor Lawrence going to land? Who are the Jacksonville Jaguars going to start to target? Blah, blah, blah. So I do think that a lot of that conversation starts pretty early with this week 1 game. But my game in particular, this is a game that not a lot of people are going to talk about, of course, because of the home team itself. But Cincinnati and the Browns. The Browns have had Cincinnati's number basically since Joe Burrow has gotten drafted. Obviously, some of that is with Baker. Some of that is a couple years ago when they were really good. And Joe Burrow obviously got hurt a couple years ago as well. People aren't expecting much from the Browns, but Joe Flacco, that was a lot of things. That was what a lot of people were talking about those last couple weeks when he came off the couch, led them to the playoffs. Obviously, he had a rough game in the playoffs itself, but, he had some good games with Indianapolis last year. What does he continue to look like? Is he still able to kind of put up the yardage and the numbers? Because we also did see towards the end of the season, they weren't winning games, but we saw Jameis Winston kind of put up numbers with that same offense. And they've been mixing and matching, kind of like bringing in talent. Junkins, I don't think he's going to play. He's obviously not playing week 1 at this point. But, he could be kind of joining soon. So a lot of talk about the Bengals. Can they start fast? They've obviously been starting off 0-1, 0-2. Last year they started off, 0-3. Do they played their starters during the preseason? Do they get off to a fast start, or do they end up losing into the Browns like they lost to the Patriots week 1 last week? I think that's a bigger game than a lot of people are talking about, because what if you do, after all the things that they've done, they've paid all their guys, and you still end up losing your first game to the season to a team that everybody's thinking is probably going to be the worst team in the league? What does the confidence of the team look like? What does the defense look like? Because it's been a little shaky in preseason. I think that their season, and a lot of people are excited. A lot of people have been picking the Bengals to at least make the playoffs. I've seen some people have picked Joe Burrow to be MVP. How does that start to look? How does the narrative start to shake there after a week 1 possible loss? I'm very interested to see kind of how that goes. And week 1 is interesting because everybody's 0-0. There's nobody that's trash technically. Obviously people
let you lose a game though. Let you lose that first game.
Let you lose that first game.
This kind of Chris, this kind of a must-win for Cincinnati though. We being honest, looking at their schedule.
Yeah.
Week 2, Jacksonville, which Jacksonville might not be ass. Yeah. And after Jacksonville, you have Minnesota, Denver, Detroit, and Green Bay. Those are your next 4 games after those first 2.
That's
all right,
tough.
you gotta win your games that you're supposed to win.
Shah made a good point too. You paid all your players. You did all this and then you paid all your offensive players. Now it's time to show up. Now it's time to show what the money is that we put into this offense. Because at this point, we didn't really invest in our defense like that. We retained Trey Henderson, but obviously at a good rate for us. Because whatever that situation was about. But You got a lot of people that are already putting in the atmosphere. Subtle hints there. Hey, Joe Burrow MVP. Joe Burrow. Subtle hints there. Yeah, you gotta show up. They pushing the envelope now. They pushing it already. So Shah right about this game. It's just a sneaky game for them because if they come out 0-1,
you can't lose this game. Honestly, I don't think you can lose this game, man.
They lose. The conversation is going to pick up quickly, and then on top of that, there's going to. As you mentioned, if they do get off to a slow start, Trey Henderson instantly becomes a hot trade commodity midseason because he's on that 1-year deal.
Yeah.
I know he just got paid. T. Higgins instantly becomes a hot commodity in terms of trade. So like it starts to things really. Jack Taylor starts to become a very very hot seat candidate. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of
Yep.
things start to shake and change with that week 1 loss, and I obviously they ran it together last year. They didn't start off too hot. They weren't good. They weren't in a good record by midseason, and they kind of rattled off some games. But how often can you do that? So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. So I think that gives us a good lead into, as Cass mentioned, the hot seat watch, something that's being brought back this year. Some people answered the call last year. We saw Kyler. It was a lot of the quarterbacks that we had all mentioned: Kyler, Justin Herbert, hell, Joe Burrow, the Will Levises of the world, the Anthony Richardsons of the world didn't necessarily answer the call the same way. So hot seat watch. We'll see what you guys got this weekend, who you guys got and why.
Go ahead, Chris.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I'll go first.
I think you're gonna choose the same person, but go ahead.
Nah, I went with a coach, not a player.
Oh no, I went with a coach. That's what I said.
Because it's week 1. So we'll kind of see how the players do, but for coaches, and this goes along with my kind of prediction that I had. Of course, I had San Francisco finishing last in the division in my predictions a couple weeks ago. I'm putting Kyle Shanahan on the hot seat. And I know his seat might not actually be hot, as far as his job security. It might be. We don't really know, really. But looking at all right, look, you're going into your 9th season. Your overall record in the regular season is 70-62. Not great. That's middle of the pack from all, like, as far as winning percentage from all the head coaches. I know you have, the 8-4 playoff record, but through 8 seasons now, you've only been in the playoffs 4 times. You look around at the other top coaches in the league, they don't really miss the playoffs. Of course, they get bounced early, some of them, like the Harbaughs and McDermott and stuff like that. And they go to the playoffs, though. You paid your quarterback this offseason. How are you going to kind of advance and kind of sustain your winning percentage going forward? I mean, it's not good, honestly, if you look at it. Of course, you had 3 seasons in a row where you were like, you had 10 wins, 13 wins, and that's cool, but you had some lows where you had 6 wins a couple times now, like 3 times now. So how are you going to bounce back from a down season? I think you're on a hot seat watch. And I'm not saying like he won't be out of the league, because I'm pretty sure multiple teams will scoop him up pretty quickly. But it might be one of those things where he might just need a new, change of, scenery. So Kyle Shanahan's time on a hot seat. And
I would honestly add John Lynch into that too, because it's not like they've done a good job of bringing in great players, but they've also missed on a lot of players. They've gotten lucky. They got lucky with Brock Purdy.
Yeah,
and things might have looked a little different with Trey Lance and stuff like that. So I think that's
all right for me.
Chris.
For me, I went with a coach too. I got Mike McDaniels. I mean, at this point, it's just a lot of crazy stuff. It's just a lot of crazy stuff going on in Miami. Up under Mike McDaniels, he's been 28-23, so a little bit above 500. And I understand, you have the injuries going on, but you have the whole Jalen Ramsey situation, you got the Tyreek Hill situation, and to be honest, coming into your tenure there, you were thought to be, rival, I guess you could say, Buffalo Bills in a sense of y'all supposed to be battling for the division. But we all said it last week when we was picking our AFC, is like, it's Buffalo. There's nobody to compete with. I feel, in my opinion, it's more like, I guess you could say it's more hype and more focus and hope for is like, Drake May and the Patriots being a little better than what they were. So you kind of falling back by the wayside in the division, and to be falling back and being almost on the same level as the teams that are trying to be up and coming, that's a problem. And so at this point, you on a hot seat for the whole season, in my opinion. This ain't no just one game situation for him. This is just to start off the season. Hey, you on the hot seat. You coaching for your job at this point. So That's how I feel about him. It's unfortunate, but it's just too much going on in Miami, and for them to have the type of players, especially on offense, and then they still have a decent amount of players on defense, young pieces on defense that they have flash here and there, but for whatever reason, it just seemed like that team cannot put it together. So Mike McDaniel's on the hot seat, my boy.
Especially when you compare him to like his counterparts and like
Right.
Matt LaFleur, Kevin O'Connell, Sean McVay, like those guys have all contributed in a major way to their teams, and you see their impact. You're supposed to be that guy. Same thing goes for Kyle. You're supposed to be that guy to. So I agree with that. I mean, we talked about it a lot though.
I mean, you do see Mike McDaniel's impact, but obviously the questions about is he just a great offensive mind as opposed to a great head coach, and obviously like as you mentioned, Jalen Ramsey, Tyreek Hill, some of the things that obviously Tyreek is a little bit different than Jalen Ramsey, but the things that Jalen Ramsey has kind of said that has basically been like, fuck Mike McDaniel, like in a sense, like I can't rock with the guy. So it leads into a good segue into my hot seat watch, and I actually have the entire game of Indianapolis versus Miami.
God
Because
entire game,
both organizations, and Chris, you hit on a lot of points from Miami. Obviously, they have been the team that everybody has kind of been like, it's been bad vibes. Obviously, the things that we've mentioned a couple times with joint practices, the Jalen Ramsey, the Tyreek Hill, that Tyreek Hill saga has still not ended necessarily because he hasn't been on the field. He's been hurt. He didn't get voted a captain. I know a lot of people, it's not that big of a deal, but people have been talking about that. Tua talked about how Tyreek had to gain some trust. There's been some whispers about, maybe Tua needs to, gain some trust with the team as well. Tua's health, the health of the defense. Obviously, Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb have been guys that have been nicked over the past couple of years with devastating injuries. So Mike McDaniel, I think, is the favorite right now to be the first head coach fired. So, how, if a win, what does that look like? Does the conversation shift to where it starts to be like, okay, this is something that we were a little bit overblown on, depending on how they win. But if they lose, Indianapolis is a team that hasn't won a week one game in over a decade. Even though they tied a game, they haven't won a game. That doesn't mean that they've lost every game, so let's be clear. But a tie is basically the same thing as a loss. So that's going to be something that a lot of fans are going to be like, oh, why did we have to become the team that, it took them all, and they've got Daniel Jones. That's going to be a lot of things that people say. They got
lost to Daniel Jones.
They got Daniel Jones. So I just have the entire organization because, like I said, if you lose this week one game, things look real crazy and could start in a division where we think that Buffalo will get off to a hot start. Some people think that the Patriots might get out to a hot start. There are some people that are fans of the Jets too. Obviously, they had a major injury with Elijah Vera-Tucker possibly being out for the entire season this year, but we learned about that today. But for whatever reason, people like Justin, no disrespect to Justin Fields, so let me not say for whatever reason, but people are fans of Justin Fields. So, there are people that think that, like, with a good infrastructure, he could be something. So they have talent with Sauce. They just paid Sauce. They just paid Garrett Wilson. Those were guys that they kind of tabbed as culture guys. So you could fall to the wayside in that division very quickly. And then on the opposite side, I mean, we talked enough about it. I mean, the Colts were on hot seat watch, my hot seat watch specifically, multiple times last year. I already mentioned Anthony Richardson at the top when we were starting to talk about hot seat watch. Obviously, he's the backup, but, Shane Steichen, like we mentioned last week, Shane Steichen is ultimately betting on himself. He knows his job is up for grabs. He's got new ownership. Obviously, it's the same family, but from Chris Ballard to Shane Steichen, they're banking on their job, and they told you straight up, hey, we're not going to, even though we might believe in Anthony Richardson's talent, we're not going to bank on Anthony Richardson keeping our jobs. And more so, Shane is saying, I am banking on myself. He was just ranked as a top 10 play caller by his peers. That just released an article that just released earlier this week. He's banking on, hey, Daniel Jones doesn't have to. I don't necessarily think Daniel Jones is great because he's never said that Daniel Jones was elite. He never said that Daniel Jones technically beat Anthony Richardson out. All he said is Daniel Jones is prepared. Daniel Jones is a pro. That's what he keeps saying, and he can run the offense. He is banking on the fact that I can scheme. I've got guys at the weapons, receiver, tight end, running back, and I just need some. I will scheme things open, much like he did with Gardner Minshew. I know if you guys recall back to last year, one of the main reasons I was a little bit higher on the Colts than a lot of people was because I was like, Anthony Richardson just has to be decent. Like, he doesn't have to be great because we just had a top 10 offense with Gardner Minshew. And he's going to bring a ceiling, a floor with his rushing ability. And I imagine Shane Steichen's thinking the same thing. Like, as long as he's all right, we're going to be all right. Everything went wrong for the Colts last year, and they still won 8 games. Like, literally everything that you could possibly think to go wrong for a team with a young quarterback probably went wrong last year, and they still won 8 games. And that's probably what Shane Steichen's thinking. So the entire organization, because it could, much like McDaniels, a guy that's the number one most likely to get fired, Shane Steichen's probably 2, 3, 4. Like one of those spots where people are thinking that he could be a head coach getting fired, and things accelerate if you lose another game, another week 1 game, haven't won it over a decade, at home under new ownership, technically same family. Got to make that clear. But and then one thing that the Colts have done a decent job of, even though they haven't made the playoffs, is they haven't necessarily cratered in terms of even last year, like with the arguing between Pat and some of the leadership or, the player leaders and stuff like that, Pat McAfee to be exact, it doesn't seem like the team has necessarily cratered where they had to get rid of a bunch of some of their key players like DeForest Buckner, Michael Pittman, Zaire, whoever the case may be. This could be the year that the dam breaks. And if you lose week 1 again, people had made jokes about how Zaire's face looked when Daniel Jones was named captain. We've heard a lot of people talk about a lot of the players. Quentin Nelson has said multiple times that Anthony Richardson's favorite quarterback. That's a leader for the team. Zaire Franklin last year said Anthony Richardson was the best player on the team. That's a leader on the team. If the players were feeling a type of way because you sold them on look, Anthony Richardson might be raw, but this is a guy that we felt had the talent to take us here. Last year, Zaire was on his podcast saying the Giants were trash. There was one reason he was saying the Giants were trash last year, and I promise you, it wasn't the rest of the players aside from the quarterback. So he publicly said that about his current starting quarterback. Could things start to teeter quickly? So I think that game is super important for both teams. It's one thing if you guys have a great game. It's like 30 to 35, 33. It's just a light show. But if it's a slow game, not a whole lot of scoring, some bad turnovers. Both organizations,
Cam, to do it.
Hey man,
win. Yeah. Both and also, as I am a Colts fan, I do obviously pay attention a lot to it. The fans also wanted Anthony Richardson to be the starter.
Yeah.
Some of the fans booed Daniel Jones at the preseason game, even though he played all right. He was fine. Yeah. He loses a game. He has some bad turnovers. He is going to get booed off the field. There is no question about it. He's going to get booed off the field. So things start to look very dire very quickly. So Colts, Dolphins, the whole organization, you guys are on the hot seat. Watch.
Big game Sunday. Big game.
Big game.
That's tough to have a big game 1, man. That's fucking
you hate to overreact to week 1s, but I feel like these last couple of teams we talked about with Cincinnati and then this game right here, that shit, it matters. It really does matter. It ain't like it doesn't matter, especially for these squads.
Yeah, and a lot of people try to. When you're the Chiefs, you're the Ravens, you're the Bills, the Eagles. You can kind of chop week 1 up to it's week 1.
Yeah.
Most of the rest of the league, you can't do that. And then even furthermore, some people are picking the Colts to be one of the worst teams in the league. Some people are picking the Dolphins to be one of the worst teams in the league. If that's the case, week 1, it starts off quickly. So got to get right. So But with that being said, we're finally here. We can get to the picks.
Let's
We're
do
finally
it.
here. We're exactly 24 hours away from the Eagles, raising their banner for their second Super Bowl win, and obviously first under Jalen Hurts. With their hated rival Cowboys, without Micah Parsons coming in, Week 1 Thursday Night Football. Who you guys got and why?
All right, I'll go ahead and pop this off. Obviously I got the Eagles win the game. But but I mean, the line is crazy. 8.5. That's insane if you ask me. It's gonna be closer than that. I mean, it's a division game. Um, like I always say, like even last year, Cash, you already know. Like I hate that we don't play in the preseason, so I already know we're gonna come out rusty as fuck. It's gonna look nasty as hell first half. I'm not even gonna act like it's gonna be fireworks. It's gonna be nasty as hell first half. And I mean, the Cowboys got a little advantage in the sense of they got a new whole coaching staff, and since they didn't play any players in their preseason game, is quote unquote, I guess, their vanilla stuff. So we don't really know exactly what they run in. So that's the only hope for them. But I still think we're gonna come out with a W anyway. I just don't think it's gonna be the blowout that seemingly everybody in the media seem to believe that it's going to happen because they just fell apart because they don't have Micah Parsons. So I still got the Eagles winning this game 1.
Yeah, I would have liked to see Dak get some run since he missed half the season last season. On top of not playing him in the preseason, it's definitely a choice, and I think that does come back to hurt him in this first game of the season. So I also got Philly winning this one at home. I am expecting a closer game though. Like you said, it could get ugly, but it could get ugly on the other side too. And like, it's a possibility that Saquon. Hey, look now, I'm still on what he did last season until I see otherwise. What's to stop him from breaking a 50-yard run on the first play of the game? Like,
If
you
he
know what
did
I'm
that
saying?
shit, that's nasty work.
That's what I see
The
many
stadium
times
might
last season.
explode if that's the case. No lie. We might just
So,
not be watching football for the rest of the night because it might
man.
get nasty in there.
So it's possibility. It's a real possibility that happens too. So, but I am expecting a close game though. I got Philly at home though.
And Philly is what has moved up to a 8.5 point favorite, almost
That's what I'm saying, bro. I
a
don't like
full
that shit,
touchdown
bro.
favorite. So,
I don't like that shit, man.
it's banner night, and obviously losing Micah Parsons is a huge hit. And I mean, even if you're the biggest Cowboy supporter, like I don't know how you come into Week 1 thinking that it's gonna go well. I'm not saying that it won't go well, but like I don't know how confident you are coming into Week 1. And the Eagles, they have to be, they've said all the right things in terms of some of it's probably a little goofy and probably not necessarily goofy, but just think about it earlier. Maybe teams after the Super Bowl should stop trying to do this whole "we're putting it behind us" nonsense. Like, yeah, it sounds good in theory, but like you're always thinking about like, this doesn't feel like the Super Bowl team, or like I remember during last training camp, we were like the vibes were like this and that and the third. Probably should just stop with the cliches there in total. And that's not a shot at the Eagles in general. And even though Sirianni was talking about he didn't know it was banner night, yes you did. Yes you did. Like stop playing. Stop playing. But if you've literally followed football for any point in life, you knew you didn't have to win a Super Bowl to know it was banner night on opening night. Come on, stop playing. I got the Cowboys. I have the Cowboys in an upset. I think a lot of people are expecting the Eagles to kind of run through them. I think that unfortunately, the Cowboys have a good night stopping the run. And Jerry has the interview of the night tomorrow in a game that I think it's going to be a little bit closer. I think it's going to be a little bit more low scoring than people think. Jalen Hurts hasn't necessarily had the best games against the Cowboys when they have been healthy. So that's also something to watch. Obviously, Saquon is a different part of that. And Dak also Dak also plays pretty well against the Cowboys. I think that given the fact that the Eagles are coming in with new edges, for the most part, kind of new edges. I mean, they've obviously been on the team. new corners as well. I think that the Cowboys, with all the expectation going against them, I think that they come in, win in a close game, maybe like a field goal win, and we shock the entire league basically, and we kick off the season with a major upset with the Cowboys ultimately.
Man, look, that Friday media shit.
You just gotta turn. You can't watch no shows on Friday if that happens. Can't watch no shows on Friday. But with that being said, on Friday, we do have another game in Brazil, right? With the Kansas City Chiefs.
Sao Paulo.
And the Los Angeles Chargers. Hopefully, there's no issues with any fields or anything like that. But who you guys got and why?
I got my first upset of the year. I got the Chargers coming there and winning. This is a neutral field, obviously, for both teams. Chargers used to playing neutral field because they don't really have no home stadium in general, so they feel right at home. I don't know. That's an interesting thing though, Shy, because last year the field was atrocious. So I'm wondering if the NFL would try to fix that, solve that problem. But any kind of fucked up field plays in the advantage of the Chargers. But I just think the Chargers, again, it's another divisional opponent, so in this circumstance, they know each other. There's no real changes in the coaching staff, so they know each other like the back of their hand. So Chargers not scared. Like I said, just divisional opponents. So I think they have everything to win, everything to prove that who Justin Herbert is to everybody. They're gonna come in there with their running attack, and I think they're gonna come in there and sneak out a win against the Chiefs.
I got a statement game. I think the Chiefs win this one. I think they win it handily as well. I think they've been waiting a long time for this game, and I think they're going to. I don't want to buy into the light show stuff, but I think they're going to put on a show. I think they're going to show some stuff that'll kind of propel them into having that one seed that I picked for them this season. So I got the Chiefs.
Okay, so we got another upset in the Chiefs. I'm also calling another upset on this one, and I'm going with the Kansas City Chiefs because I'm upset that they're going to win this game.
this
got crazy.
No, I'm not upset that they're going to win the game, but until the Chargers show me that they have this, they do a great job of beating the Chiefs until like the last minute, and then somehow Travis Kelce, Pat Mahomes put together something. I think the last game they played, basically the entire Chargers receiving room was missing. They still end up having the lead in the end, and whether the Chiefs doink a field goal in to win. It's just always something that goes wrong in that game. Until the Chargers beat them and beat them handily, I'm going to go with the Chiefs in this one, even though it's in a neutral grounds. I don't know. I just can't trust it. It's something silly always seems to happen. And, I say it's something silly, but that's kind of what it is when you get to, when you're a champion, you're been to 3 straight Super Bowls, won 3 Super Bowls. You figure out a way to win, and I think that the Kansas City Chiefs does that. And I don't know about a statement win, but I do think that they have a pretty solid win against the Chargers. So, with that being said, getting to the next game of the week, we got a lot of great games, honestly, including that's the first 2 primetime games, and then getting into the Sunday games. Detroit versus Green Bay. Obviously, we got some fresh blood in that rivalry with Micah Parsons coming over. And my hopeful MVP for the season in Jared Goff. Who you guys got and why?
I got Detroit in this game. I think they'll come in and show Green Bay who really runs the division. I understand they got Micah Parsons, but I don't know for sure, but I would imagine he's probably on a pitch count in general. Basically missing all the training camp and supposedly still have a spinal injury or whatnot. But I believe Detroit they're gonna come in and they're gonna show Green Bay what's up. They're not. I mean, just because you got Micah Parsons don't mean we scared. We got Penei. So I think they're gonna come in and do what they do best, run the ball, get that play action going. I think they're gonna come out with that W.
Yeah, I'm also going with Detroit in this one. Like you said, Chris, they ain't backing down for nobody. I still think they're the better team overall, despite what everybody's changing up these last this last week. I still think Detroit's the best team in that division. It's a big game though, honestly, for Detroit coming in on the road. But I still got Detroit pulling it off.
I also have Detroit. Obviously, I had them having a big season, and much like I said at the top of the show when we talked about some of the switches with Micah Parsons, I don't have anything switching in terms of seeding or seeding for them and how their season ends up looking. I think that this is the first game that they kind of have another statement win, and they've kind of had the Packers number really since that last game where they a couple years back where they were kind of on their run, and then they ended the Packers run because the Packers had an opportunity to win and get in. Aaron Rodgers' last game, they kind of had the Packers number since then. I think that kind of continues. We've seen a lot of the silly Jordan Love picks against the Packers. I mean, against the Lions as well. But I do think that they get rolling pretty quickly. While the Packers still have some things to figure out. Obviously, defensively with Micah Parsons coming in, as well as their receiving room and the health of their receiving room and the health of Jordan Love, I do think there's some stuff to figure out. And maybe as we get to week 2, week 3, week 4, they kind of start to take off and go from there, gel a little bit better. So, getting into another 4:00 game. This is another marquee for a lot of favorites for some folks. The LA Rams versus the Houston Texans. Who you guys got and why?
I got the Texans. As y'all know, I'm the host of I don't like Matthew Stafford. I don't like the Rams. I don't know why people think they did fire, but I just think their defense gonna get after them. They gonna test. I was about to say something crazy. They gonna test Matthew Stafford.
Yeah, you about to say something crazy.
You got a back now. But I really think it's gonna be one of them defensive games for them. They're gonna come after Matthew Stafford. I think they're gonna get to him. And throw them off a little bit. And as far as their offense go, I know we have a little suspect of the offensive line for the Texans, but I think they're gonna get that running game going and make CJ look comfortable. So I got the Texans winning this one.
Okay. This is a tough one for me to pick, real tough. And in tough ones, I got to lean home team with this one. So I'm going with the Rams. I am a believer in Matt Stafford, Chris, and I think you'll come around eventually. But I think he's getting more healthy, I guess, he's as good as he's going to get. And I think Devontae Adams has a huge game in this one, along with Puka. I think they get kickstarted, pretty quickly there. And I think it's a big day for that Rams defensive line. With Fisk and Young and Verse, of course. I think they have a huge day and hold it down at home. I got the Rams.
I actually also have the Houston Texans on this one. I do think that much like last year, the week 1 game will kind of be a false view for what their offensive line looks like, and I do think that they kind of handled the Rams D line. But I think that the Rams, coming off of a bad back, as Chris mentioned, and the first game that you play is against the team that could be the number 1 defense in the league. I don't think that bodes well for you, especially when you're trying to mesh with a new receiver and Devontae Adams coming over there when they have one of the top, if not the top secondary in the league. I just think that it's a bad matchup for the Rams for a week 1 game. Maybe later on in the season, I might have felt it a little differently, even though I do have the Rams 4th in their division, and what my prediction was. But I do think that the Texans actually dominate this game, and win in a handily in a 2-score win at home in LA. So I think the Houston Texans get off to a hot start, but it's a little bit of a false hot start where people are like, oh, well, all the questions that we had about their offensive line, and then the next week they're like, but getting into Sunday Night Football, obviously a rematch of the AFC divisional game between Buffalo and the Ravens last year, a game that ended in heartbreak fashion for the Baltimore Ravens. Obviously, they've retooled a lot, and Buffalo has brought in some new guys as well. But who you guys got and why?
Might be my game of the week in general. It's a good matchup for both teams. Obviously, like you said, Shad, they just played in the playoffs. The Ravens probably want to come in there and get that taste out their mouth as far as that loss go. But it's a tough one to choose. But I'm gonna do what my boy Cass has said. I'm just gonna go with the home team. I'm gonna rock with the Buffalo Bills with this one in a close game, possibly overtime again. I just think that both teams are that they're. This game is really meaningless to both teams, in my opinion. I understand you could say, most people say, this possible seeding 18 weeks down the road, you're gonna look at it in week one and say, man, I lost that game. I don't think that for them too. They have bigger aspirations at this point. Obviously, it's still a regular season game, so it counts. But I don't think as much of this game as either one of them lose. Now, if somebody get blown out, then obviously you gotta take a step back and look at that. But in a close win, I wouldn't take it no bad way for either one of these teams. But I do got the Buffalo Bills winning this.
I'm gonna go. I respect that for sure. This was an impossible game to kind of pick, honestly, if we're being honest about it. But I'm gonna go Baltimore on the road in this one. I mean, like we talked about, they're my Super Bowl pick. I think they just have a better team overall. Definitely a better defense. Buffalo's still trying to figure out kind of, of course they got the James Cook, they got Josh Allen, but we're still trying to figure out who's going to be that guy at receiver. Is it going to keep being Shakir? Is Keon Coleman going to step up? How is Josh Palmer going to fit in? I think there's still a lot of questions they got to answer against a tough defense in Baltimore. I know they started off bad, Baltimore's defense last season, and kind of picked it up. But I think they start off way better than that this season. And I just think Derrick Henry is still going to be a problem for that Buffalo defense. So I got Baltimore pulling this one out.
This is a tough game because it's obviously, Baltimore is one of my favorite teams outside of my own team. And, same with Buffalo, two teams that I would love to have seen got their just due over the past two seasons. But I'm actually going to go with the home team as well. And I'm going to go with Buffalo. I just think that playing the first game of the season in Buffalo, kind of psyching themselves up to kind of get revenge on how last season ended is going to be their undoing in the end. One of the things that I've mentioned a couple times, basically since that playoff loss, was kind of how the mentality of John Harbaugh and how the team, kind of embodies that. And we have seen him kind of, get a little clammy in some of these big moments. So I'm expecting Buffalo to win in a close game, maybe very similar to how it ended where somebody drops a 2-point conversion. Even last year, first game of the season, with the Chiefs and the Ravens ended up on inches with Isaiah Likely's toe crossing the back line. I think we could see something very similar to how that all played out. But I also think that this could be the game of the week, but I'm going to go with Buffalo in this one, winning by like 2 or 3 points. So one that I'm not, I like picking against the Ravens, but hey, picking against them this week. But get into the last game of the week, our Monday night game. Obviously, the debut of J.J. McCarthy in the regular season action, with Caleb Williams having his debut under Ben Johnson in Chicago at home. Who you guys got and why?
It's an interesting game because people on this field got something to prove. Caleb got something to prove, being the number one pick. Maybe finally getting a coach that's going to help him out, being a little better in how he performs within the pocket. And then you got JJ, who haven't played actual regular season game for an NFL team, but I got the Vikings in this one. That defense, I feel like that defense is going to get after Caleb, man. He gonna make him go back to his bad habits of running around doing whatever with his head cut off and all that extra shit. But I think that defense is going to really get to Caleb. It's going to cause some issues. I'm not going to say he's going to have a bad game, but he's going to have a costly turnover in this game, I believe. But I'm gonna roll with the Vikings.
For a lot of the same reasons, Chris, I'm going with you on that. I got Minnesota pulling this one out, even though they are on the road. It is earlier in the season, so weather won't be that big of a factor. Being in Chicago, Caleb gonna have to prove to me that he's not going to sit back there and just take bad sacks and hold the ball. He gonna have to prove it. I have to see it. Other than that, I have very little confidence in that. I know Minnesota's obviously great defense. On offense, they're not going to ask a lot from JJ. We all know that. They're going to ride. They're going to lean on. That was a close one. They're going to lean. They're going to lean on the run game. Lean on Aaron Jones. Lean on Jordan Mason. And of course, they don't have Addison for these first 3 games. And Jefferson still going to get his, but I think they're going to take a lot of pressure off JJ and really focus on that defense. And I think they'll be able to get to Caleb and kind of rattle him.
Yeah, I'm also rocking with the Vikings. Addition of Adam Thielen, I think, ends up showing up pretty quickly with the absence of Jordan Addison as well. Obviously, he has familiarity with the team and stuff like that. So I think that he's going to be able to hop in and hit the ground running, kind of help them out and with some of the receiver injuries that they've had. And I do think that the Minnesota defense replenished with new corners, replenished with a new D line. Obviously, they've got a new little bit of a new offensive line with their offensive line also getting healthy, and then some of the guys that they signed in the free agency. I told you guys, I felt that the Vikings team was loaded and JJ McCarthy just has to be mediocre. I think we see just that in the first Monday night game. That's kind of a tough start for him for his first game coming off injury being in Monday night. So I can see a scenario where maybe the Bears kind of flip the script in their defenses a little bit. Because I feel like a lot of people haven't talked about the Bears defense that much, with Dennis Allen coming over there. He was the hottest commodity at defensive coordinator this past offseason, and everybody, thinks that he has got a great defensive mind. So we could see the same thing, but I just trust in, I think, the same way that Cass has said that Caleb has to show him, I'm feeling the same way about Ben Johnson. He's been kind of the golden child. Let's see if it was it Detroit, their infrastructure, their playbook, their players, or is it really like you're the mad magician or the madman or whatever the case may be, kind of orchestrating things and stuff like that. So I'm excited to see that kind of chess match between him and Brian Flores as well. But I do have the Vikings coming out on top to close week 1 in a bit of an upset as well. So starting off with an upset, ending with an upset to start off the week 1 and start off our 2025 NFL season.
Let's go.
Yeah, it's getting closer and closer. This week is kind of flown by. Tomorrow is going to be crazy. Just watching the Philly fans, how they bring the energy. So I'm excited. I'm nervous about my Cowboys pick, but I wouldn't be. I'm a fan of good football. So if the Eagles come out and do what they do, I'm not hating on it. So, but I'm excited. It's time to kind of see it's put up or shut up time. We got a taste of it last week over the past couple of weeks with college football. So we'll see if there's any disappointments like some people have been talking about with Arch this week. So I'm excited.
Me too.
Most definitely.
But yeah, man. That gives us another wrap of the Speak Up Sports podcast, and we will catch you guys next week for week 2 and get into all the action.
Yes, sir.